Is it better to buy booster boxes or is it better to buy mangas? That's what we're covering in today's video. We'll be giving an unbiased view, looking at both the pros and the cons of both. The pros and the cons of holding a box, or the pros and the cons of holding mangas. That's what we'll be talking about in today's video. Now we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about, so let's begin. Alrighty, so mangas have three main advantages. Number one is that it's really easy to store. So this is a big thing that a lot of people struggle with, is storing. Boxes are big, and once you start to accumulate, it gets big. Like with mangas, you have a Gear 5 Luffy PSA 10. Say you hold one of those. First of all, I'm very jealous of you. But say you hold one of them. Okay, great. So that's a tiny little card and it's worth 8 grand, right? If you want to hold 8 grand of boxes, you better bet you have some storage available, because it gets extremely difficult extremely fast. This is something a lot of people stumble across, is that storage seriously becomes a problem. And I'm not gonna lie, I make it work. I pull some strings. Sometimes I had to convince like my roommates, like, hey, is it okay if I store it here, or I have to buy some extra storage somewhere. But most of the time, most people, they just want to keep it simple. They don't want to complicate things. So this is where having the physical cards is just so good. So the biggest pro, in my opinion, whenever it comes to mangas, is the storage side of it. But the second pro is that it is fun to collect / invest in mangas. You got to think, boxes, in my opinion, they're not really that fun. I'd say owning your first, owning your second, owning your third box, it's fun. After a while, it just gets boring. The thing about mangas is every single time it's cool. Whether you hold a Manga Zoro, a Luffy, Gear 5 Luffy, or a Shanks, or Nami, or all these other different mangas, the thing is, it's actually fun. And when it's fun, you can do so much better, right? So if we are competing and you enjoy, let's just say, playing basketball, and I hate it, you're more likely to succeed over me, right? So this is why a lot of people who are in hobbies, they can naturally outperform the S&P 500. They can naturally outperform every asset class, and also outperform a lot of like investors. And the reason why is they actually enjoy it. So they don't see it as like difficulty, right? So this is a great way to stray away from burnout. I definitely know that I'm probably not going to pick up any more boxes until I get a manga. It's been a while since I've owned one. I owned a Zoro one. I enjoyed it. It eventually went up a crap ton, so I would prefer the money. But if I'm being honest with you, I do want a manga still. I do have a couple on my list that I want to collect. So it is definitely a good way to like keep you motivated, right? You buy a couple boxes and like you reward yourself if they go up. You buy yourself a manga and it will naturally go up a large amount, and it's very easy to store, and it's really fun. Alrighty, number 3 is that they're quite easy to move. They're not really that difficult. The thing about One Piece is that it's very concentrated on manga rares, right? So a lot of the cards, like normal cards, yeah, they're pretty difficult to move. They're not the easiest out there. But mangas, there's like an endless demand for them. Every single time I see a listing online, it gets eaten up immediately. Whether it's Facebook groups, whether it's Discord groups, or eBay, wherever it may be. Whether it's Raw, PSA 10, it doesn't really matter. Honestly, except for PSA 9s, those never move. But if it's a PSA 10, it moves so easily. So this is a big benefit, is it's like, dude, if your car just got a flat tire, preferably you have money for it, but if you don't, then they're pretty easy to move. A lot of the time you can sell it for market the same day, which is pretty remarkable. So those are the 3 pros of mangas, but let's look at the 3 pros of booster boxes. Alright, pro number 1 is that booster boxes simply go up more. This is just a fact. You can look at the data. Time and time again, we're seeing booster boxes outperform mangas, and it's not even close. A lot of time booster boxes do so much better. Now, granted, once again, this does get to how it's really boring, so some people may experience burnout, but nonetheless, if you do have that discipline to hold onto the box, you will do far better holding boxes, because they simply go up more. Now, not really much more to explain there, so moving on to the next pro. The next pro is that they're really easy to move. Now, a big pro with mangas is they're easy to move. This one is like really easy to move. Booster boxes just fly off the shelf, especially when there's like a shortage, maybe in your local area, or there's just generally a shortage, like a demand for an item, like OP 13 cases, right? I have 2 sealed cases. I could just make a listing and I'd sell them within an hour. I've had so many people. I listed 5, and I want to say I got like 40 people DM me, sold three. Oh no, I sold all of them except for two. And then I'm keeping those two predominantly for the long term. And those ones that I sold, like I got so many DMs so quick, like 40 plus DMs within like a couple hours. It was insane. And then people like reached back to me like, oh hey, are you sure you haven't sold it? And people were really like trying to lock in their position, right? So booster boxes are just really easy to move. Number three, this is the biggest pro with booster boxes, is that your risk is low. The problem about mangas, and we'll get to this soon, is that there is a level of risk. Now, we'll get to that, but the pro about boxes is that you're investing in a set as a whole, right? If you invest in something like OPO4, you're predominantly investing in the Cebu manga. You're investing in the longevity of honestly mainly that card. But then when you get to sets like OP13, you're not investing in one manga or two mangas. You're investing in gold and silver cards. You're investing in normal mangas, red mangas, guard packs, and wanted posters and pre-errata cards. You're investing in all these different things. So it's like, even if a couple of them don't do that well, even if a couple do, like the red mangas, for example, right? I made a video, top 10 mangas to invest in. Make sure to watch that one if you haven't already. But I know I didn't talk about it, but I didn't add red mangas on the list, and the reason why is they're so expensive already, right? So it's like, it's not saying that they won't go up in the future. I'm sure they will, like, eventually, but when you expose yourself to really expensive cards, 2, 3, 4, 5 grand cards, your risk really gets high, because it's like, this box going from 180 to 360 is not that difficult. A card going from 10k to 20k is like climbing a freaking mountain. So there's very low risk whenever it comes to booster boxes. Realistically, the supply goes down because people open it up, so it's borderline, I don't like this word, but it's borderline recession proof, if you will. And the reason why is because even if the demand drops off, it doesn't really matter, because every minute that goes by, they're constantly being opened. OP13, every time you sleep, there are less and less in supply. Just think about that. I mean, unless there's reprints, but provided there's no reprints. Well, I mean, there are, but like, okay, OPO1, every single time you go to sleep, there's less and less of them available, right? So that's the thing about it. It's just such low risk. Even if the market pulls back, even if the economy pulls back, okay, trading cards aren't all about money, so people are still opening up booster boxes. People are going to go, oh man, the stock market's doing that bad? Well, I'm going to open up some One Piece because they enjoy it. That's what they want to do. So then naturally it goes up, but it's not all about money, right? So that's the thing about this kind of item, is it's really safe in that aspect. Alrighty, now let's go over the cons. So there's two cons for mangas. The first con is that it can be overshone by another like manga of the same character. So I'm going to use OPO4 as an example. So obviously One Piece is super new. So when I make these videos, I don't have a lot of data to go based off. A lot of time, we can just kind of like roughly guess, like, will the red manga do well? Well, let's look at the Gold Roger, and then it's like, there's not really that much data to look at. Look at those really rare cards, it's really difficult to rank. With new stuff like this, it's very difficult in a sense to really rank them and make a decision. But this is the rare example where we can get like an indefinite example. Cebu manga. Alrighty, con number 2 is that it just doesn't go up as much as sets, and it is to a large amount. So, like I said before, the benefit is that it's really enjoyable, but everything comes at a cost and nothing is free. That comes at a cost. It's because it doesn't go up as much as set. So if you compare something like Manga Shanks, right? So OPO1 was like, I want to say $200, $300 when I got in the hobby. Blue bottom. Blue bottom, white bottom. And the Shanks was, I want to say, about $1,000 as a PSA 10, about that range, maybe like $900. So the Shanks has gone to 3.7, so that's like a 3.5-ish X on your money, versus white bottom, which is from like, let's just say $250 to $1,200, which is like a 5X on your money. So it's a pretty substantial amount. And that's not even a good example. Like, there are so many other examples where the booster box, it just kind of does better. So it's like, even in the best possible scenario, like the only scenario I can realistically think is like the best possible scenario is the Manga Zoro from 06, because that Manga Zoro absolutely took off. It's like 2.6k now. The booster box, is it even like above 220? I don't even know if it's above 220. I don't think it is. So yeah, that's definitely something to think about there. Alrighty, booster boxes. Number 1 is that it's boring. It's really boring. There's a reason why a lot of people who try too hard with investing sort of just fail is it's the kind of thing where you just have to leave it there and let it grow, and it's just boring, man. Like, dude, I have, you know, my OP13 boxes, man. I'd love to just, you know, maybe sell a case, just treat myself to like a Manga Zoro, and then maybe like if we can squeeze like a Snake Man, if we can, that'd be great. But the cases, you know, they generally make more money. So you have to be locked in. You got to have a good balance, right? Well, actually, no. Whatever works for you works for you. But the thing is that it is really boring, and that's a big thing about that. This once again strains back to those people who are chasing hype. They're chasing Labubus, then Pokemon, then One Piece. Like, dude, I saw this guy saying online how he was saying that he jumped into Pokemon earlier this year. Now he's jumping into One Piece, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But when you have someone who's been in the industry for a while, and you kind of see a bit of a repeating pattern, right? Like, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with taking a break from a hobby, right? If you got One Piece in early and you're coming back, or if you do the same with Pokemon or other things, that's fair enough. But it's like, if you just jump on something the second something becomes hot, it's just not really that good. And then you see people who are in certain hobbies that may hold items that haven't outperformed the items you're holding, but maybe they just held it a lot longer, so then they bought at a cheaper price. So they're just doing better, right? So that's just kind of the thing with boring investments, is that I know a lot of people struggle with it. So a lot of people get really pumped up and like, yeah, I'm going to hold for 10 years. And I'm like, oh, that's good, but let's get a little bit real. Are you sure you're going to be able to do that? Like, you know, maybe don't reach for the stars. Maybe just, you know, just reach for something a little bit more reasonable, because it is a really mentally, like, it requires a lot of discipline, especially when something doesn't move for like 6 months on end. At least with the manga, you can still enjoy it. Like, when I did have that Manga Zoro, I had it at my desk, and that thing literally distracted me from working because I kept looking at it. I was like, oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Now, I'm trying to make peace with that, the fact that I sold it and it exploded after I sold it, but just whatever. It's not a big deal. I'll probably just buy it back later when I'm rich off of OP13 boxes. Am I right, chat? Alrighty, number 2. This is not really that big of a con, but it can get damaged quite easily. Not over like 1 year or 2 years, but like if you hold it for a good while, yeah, it does require more attention to make sure it keeps its condition. Like, I've seen tons of stories online where people check back on their seal collection and there's water damage on it, or like rats ate their collection, or their seal breaks on the box, right? Like, if someone, when they open up the parcel, they cut the seal. That happens a lot. But something that happens incredibly commonly is, I don't know why I grabbed this as if there's an issue with this one, but something that happens fairly common is people will buy a box and then there'll be a rip in the seal, but it's small enough where it's not a big deal, right? Like, it's a tiny rip, but you won't notice it. And then maybe like 2 years later, when you go to sell it, you can have difficulties because people will go like, oh, well, I want a 100% minty box. Like, maybe at the time, if you've got a $150 box, you don't really have to mention like, hey, there's a tiny hole in it. And then, you know, if you buy it off somebody and you don't really notice, maybe you got like 20 boxes and you don't really notice. And then later when you go to sell it, then it goes up a lot. So then you have to like knock off a couple $100. If it's like, say, Blue Bottom, right? If you bought it for $100, now it's $5,000, and yours had a tiny little hole. It just, the keeping it in well condition can sort of be a problem. Like, you can put it in bubble wrap, but if you live in a really hot environment, there's been cases where the bubble wrap actually melts onto the seal and then damages the seal. Tons of different things that really complicate it, like moisture, humidity, that is definitely a problem. So there's a lot more maintenance to it, if you will. Final con is that it's prone to reprints. This is just something booster boxes are prone to. Yeah, they can get huge reprints. It does happen. Now, with One Piece, it hasn't really happened a whole ton yet, but I'm sure we'll have that set eventually where people really lose money on. For other trading card games, it happens. Like, it's not a matter of if, it's more of a matter of when, if I'm being honest. I can't really think of a single one that hasn't really been affected that bad, but it will happen eventually. More than likely, they'll just do too big of a reprint. Maybe like, I know OP14 is already selling out quite quickly because people are jumping on from the OP13 hype now to OP14. But like, maybe it's not OP14, maybe it's not OP15, but maybe like Bandai goes, oh, well, there's so much demand, we really need to print OP16, and then there's just not enough demand, and then it just dies for like a year or two, or more longer, like 3 or 4 years. There's been tons of cases with Pokemon, with Magic the Gathering, with other TCGs where it just gets all the stars align, too little demand, too high supply, and then it just stagnates for a good while. Maybe it's a weak set as well. It started off strong, but then people, maybe after the dust settled, they got a bit bored of it. So that is definitely a possibility. Hasn't happened with One Piece yet, but it can happen in the future. Huge reprints. At least with mangas, it's somewhat like afloat. You know, they're pretty rare, only in one every couple cases. It's pretty straight up, if you will. So yeah. All right, so now which one is better? Well, if you want to aggressively invest and generate as much money as possible, your best bet are booster boxes, but you do have to question your ability to actually hold them for a good while. I know tons of people, every single week, it's the same loop. They buy a new item, they hold it for 3 weeks, and then they sell it. And then they buy a new item and they hold it for 3 weeks. And then sometimes they do it so often, they actually go in a little loop, and then they actually go back to that original item once it's gone up a lot. It happens to the best of us. I mean, I did that for older Pokemon boxes. I would buy it for 200, then sell it for 300, and then buy it back for 400, sell it for 500, buy it back, and then I do this constant repeat. But it's just something you've just got to stop doing, man. So if you can hold it for a while, go for it. OP13, if you can hold it for 2 years with no gains, even if me just saying that out loud annoys you, there might be some red flags, right? Like, even if I just say it out loud, hey, you might not see any gains because it's still in print. People might go like, oh, but I want it to be short printed. And it's like, okay, let's get back to reality. You can invest in this stuff if you want, but you have to wait for the items to be out of rotation. Let's get real here. They're not going to short print every single item. So if you do have the discipline for it, I'd say go for it. If not, there is nothing wrong with going for singles. I know tons of very smart people who say, hey, I don't have the discipline to keep this sealed, I'm going to stick with slabs, and they do just fine. There is nothing wrong about it. There's nothing embarrassing about it. If you can't keep it sealed because you can't hold yourself back, just recognize your issues and work around them. Don't just constantly think this time's different. If you can take action and go, all right, you know what, this doesn't work, but this does, you'll do far better than most people. Now let's get to mangas. Mangas are a great way to stray from burnout. They're a great way to make gains, but also it happens really fast. The Zoro is a great example. I bought this as a hobby. I bought this as something I enjoyed. It's something I'd wanted from the day the leaks came out that the Zoro would be in OP06. I wanted it from the day it came out. And then I waited, and the perfect opportunity came. I bought it for, I think it was like $600 or like $700 for a PSA 10 English. I was so happy. I enjoyed it for a couple months, and then eventually it went up just enough, and then I decided to sell it. Now, I do sort of regret it. I'm just going to go out and say that. So yeah, I do regret it, but nonetheless, I didn't even need to try, and I turned like $600 into like $1,500. Like, it was just so fun. It didn't feel like work, right? It was like I got to enjoy this, and it's like, great, now I can get this money and I can buy something else, right? So that's the beauty about mangas, is it's like you're not even thinking about the money side of it. So then time will just go by so fast, and then you'll just realize like, wow, this card I bought for $2,000 is now worth $6,000. Do I want to sell it and buy something else? Do I want to keep it because I love it that much? What do I want to do? And you'll figure that out. So that's the pros of mangas. But yeah, that is going to do it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.